Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast. I'm Chad Thomas, and over there, I got it right this time, Jamie.
You did. I'm over here.
Jamie Widener. We're both members of Jott-Nyx Paranormal out of the Lancaster County area, Pennsylvania. Jamie, what's going on?
Well, sir, it's election day, so that was a thing all day, right? I trust you found some time to go do civic duties and vote.
I did, and I got Zoe there because Zoe turned 18 this year. Well, you know that,
Yeah,
but
I knew that. Yes, but
Zoe
first,
turned
first
18
cycle.
this year
Yep.
and was very excited to do her civic duty and got registered and cast her ballot today. So I'm very proud of her. So
All right. If you don't vote, you don't get to complain. So
that's right.
really simple.
So,
We're going to complain no matter what. But
yeah, this is true. So
what's going on with you? How was your week?
my week's been busy. Work has picked up, and it's either feast or famine sometimes, and we are
Hey, Jim.
in feast with work at least. So
Yeah.
so I think I had let's see, what was it, a 14-hour day on Saturday, and that makes for a long day.
I'm going to tell you something you may not know.
What's
I
that?
had a 24-hour day on Saturday.
Okay, I had a 14. Actually, did you, or did you have a 25-hour day?
I might have. I don't know. I was just, or last
We
week.
gained an hour. We did gain an hour this week.
Yeah. Oh, 20. I don't know. That's always confusing.
Anyway, we digress.
Here's the funny thing, and I do this to myself. It doesn't matter whether changing them forward or changing them back. I stay up too late. So I lost the hour I gained no matter what. So
Yep, definitely.
didn't help. Hi, Marie. Good evening. So yeah,
But yeah, other than that, it's been a good week.
I agree. This is the best thing on tonight. So don't worry about the other stuff. It'll work itself out.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be, and we have to just be happy with the results and live with the results. And 4 years will be here in 4 years, and we can make a change then. If you're not happy, go vote. So
yeah. All right.
Anyway,
considering this is a paranormal podcast, we should probably talk about some paranormal stuff.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe
Segue.
maybe I should find a script or something then.
Those are nice. I agree.
Let's see. So Jamie, with all that's going on here right now, let's take a trip back in time.
Ooh, I like these trips. Okay.
Back to the early 1900s. You're a wealthy city dweller. Maybe you live in Boston or New York City, and you and your family take the train every summer north and spend the entire summer at a grand hotel. These hotels have everything you need: lodging, dining, entertainment, social activities, and these were just a few things available. This would be the norm for the wealthy between the late 1800s and the 1960s. It may remind you of that movie from probably when you were a teenager, Dirty Dancing. Do you remember that movie?
Never. Yeah,
never heard of it. Right.
Of course.
So
hey, nobody puts baby in the corner.
Exactly. Well, we aren't going to be talking about the fictional Kellerman Mountain House tonight. We're going to be talking about one of the grand hotels that Dirty Dancing was modeled from. We're going to start in 1881 with a guy named Joseph Stickney, who was a coal broker, and he bought the Mount Pleasant House. This hotel had been built in 1875 after the railroad was built through Crawford Notch near Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Stickney and his business partner expanded it from the box-like 40-room hotel that it was to a grand hotel to accommodate the affluent visitors coming from the city. Stickney must have decided that he liked the hotel life because he bought out his partners, and in 1900 he purchased the land across the street from the Mount Pleasant Hotel. He hired Charles Allen Gifford to design a Spanish Renaissance Revival hotel. The grand white hotel with its red tile roof must have been breathtaking as guests arrived on July 28th, 1902 for the grand opening. Now, this was something very unusual for these grand hotels. Typically, they were hotels that, like the Mount Pleasant House, that were hotels, and they were added onto, and they were added onto, and they were added onto, and they eventually became this grand hotel. This one was designed as a grand hotel from the get-go. It started, the design was there. It started with some intriguing features, and just, I can't wait to get into some of the details. So, after taking the train to a nearby station, guests were shuttled by horse and carriage to the hotel. There they would find a magnificent Y-shaped structure. The 200 rooms had been carefully constructed by 250 Italian artisans. The exterior was granite that was quarried on the property, and there was also stucco masonry on the outside. The interior boasted over 2,000 doors, 1,200 windows containing over half an acre of glass, 5,000 electric lights, Tiffany stained glass, crystal chandeliers, and 11 miles of plumbing feeding the private baths in every room. Now, in 1902,
Wow.
this is
Yeah.
something that you didn't have.
That's quite a feat. Yep.
So now the statistic that surprises me the most, I think, is that it took 900 kegs or 3 train cars full of nails to build the hotel. It's a lot of nails.
I think that was where you're going. You were starting with kegs. So
Yeah,
okay, okay.
I know, I know.
All right. But yeah.
So now all of this cost $1.7 million, which is about $54 million today.
Yep.
The hotel had its own private post office, multiple train stations. It had its own telephone system, which again was something in that day was very unusual. So each room had its own phone.
Wow.
For activities, it had an indoor swimming pool, a 9-hole golf course, and an extensive veranda. 6 laps around the veranda equaled 1 mile. So rain or shine, guests could get their exercise. It
I
was
guess stop you there. I guess stop you there. Obscure
okay.
movie reference time. It happens every episode, right?
Uh-huh.
So, The Three Amigos, classic film.
Uh-huh.
Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, Martin Short. Near the end, when the amigos vanquish the El Guapo, the very attractive native local girl says to Chevy Chase's character, "Would you like to kiss me on the veranda?" And he says, "No, but how about on the lips?"
Oh.
Three
So,
Amigos, go find it, guys. It's great.
mhm.
All right,
Good
back
movie.
to
I
the
do
regular
remember
part of
that
the
one.
program.
So, I'm just going to let some slides, flow through here, and then maybe later on I'll catch some of them and talk about them specifically.
Sure.
So anyway, well, back to the veranda. 6 laps equaled a mile. They got their exercise. So it was basically everything a summer vacationer would need. But these people weren't vacationing; they were living there for the summer. They would, basically the families would pack up. The women and children would go live there for the summer, and the men would commute back and forth, um, doing their jobs that they're normally. But they were trying to get away from yellow fever, cholera, and just getting fresh air and exercise, because the cities were a cramped place. So this was how they did it. When it opened, it was called the Mount Washington Hotel. Interesting enough, it's not located on Mount Washington. Maybe it got its name from the spectacular views of Mount Washington that can be seen from most of the windows. So during the opening ceremonies, after the electrician, one Thomas Edison, threw the switch to turn on the electric lights for the first time, Joseph Stickney in his opening remarks said, "Look at me, gentlemen, for I am the poor fool who built all this." Unfortunately, Stickney passed away within a year of the hotel opening. His wife, Carolyn Foster Stickney, inherited the hotel. She would spend the summers here for the next decade. Now, keep in mind that these hotels were only open during the summer months. While she was there in her tenure, she added the sun dining room, a 4th floor between the front towers, and a chapel dedicated to her late husband. Carolyn married French Prince, and I'm going to butcher this, Aimon de Fassigny-Lessinge, and was then known as Princess Carolyn. The hotel was managed by John Anderson, and it quickly became the place to spend the summers. The Rockefellers, Ford, the Rockefellers, all those type of people spent time there. Multiple presidents, all sorts of famous people have spent a lot of time there. When Carolyn passed away in 1936, her nephew inherited the hotel, and the Mount Pleasant house across the street. This was all one property. It also included lots of land behind the hotel that had riding trails, hiking trails, all sorts of stuff. I forget. I think at one point it was 11,000 acres or something like that. It was a huge property. Reynolds kept the Mount Washington Hotel open until things got too tough in 1942 with the start of World War II. He closed the doors and it sat empty for 2 years until being purchased by a Boston syndicate for $450,000. So, quite a bargain after the amount of money that was put into it. Now, they say timing is everything. In 1944, the US government was looking for a place to host a worldwide financial conference. The conference was to deal with the aftermath of years of war and what it had done to banking and the world economy. They found that the Mount Washington Hotel and decided because of its remote location, it would be secure and there would be enough room to house the 730 delegates from 44 nations. Remember how I said it sat empty for 2 years? That took a toll on the Mountain Hotel. Roofs had collapsed because of heavy snow, wallpaper was peeling, and things were generally a mess. With 2 months between the selection date and the conference, 150 workers were hired by the government. They brought in new furniture, and each of those workers was given 50 cans of white paint. They were told, if it doesn't move, paint it. And that's what they did. They painted the brass lighting fixtures in the Great Hall, the mahogany doors, and even some of the Tiffany stained glass.
Wow.
The workers didn't understand historic preservation, and even if they did, there wasn't time to do it correctly. This conference that took place in July of 1944 lasted 19 days. Now it's known as the Bretton Woods Conference. It established the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the gold standard. It also pegged several currencies to the US dollar. Every part of the hotel was used for these meetings, but the gold room was set up with 14 chairs for the 14 power nations. It was used for the formal signing of the documents. The table in the room was originally Carolyn Stickney's private dining room table. Now, if you visit the hotel today, it's still located in the gold room under what's called a gasolier. You know what a gasolier is, Jamie?
I feel like I should, but I don't off the top of my head.
All right, a gasolier is a chandelier that uses gas instead of electricity.
That's kind of it. Kind of sounds like it should be that, right?
Right.
It's kind of a play on the name. Okay.
So the reason that they actually installed this for the conference because there was fear that the electricity might fail.
Okay.
So they put this in. And I don't know if I talked about it, but they did have their own power plant on site as well. There was some of those other things. So
Okay.
yeah, there was definitely their own power, but they were still worried about it because that's how important this conference was. They didn't want the dignitaries to be sitting there in the dark. The owners of the hotel were paid $300,000 for the loss of business, and they also received $18 per day for the 19-day conference, or per day per person for the 19-day conference. So, still not a ton of money to make up for, or at least for the per person count. But anyway, we'll keep moving on. In September of 1978, the Mount Washington Hotel was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It was then listed as a National Historic Landmark in 1986 because of the Bretton Woods Conference. The Mount Washington Hotel Preservation Limited Partnership bought the hotel in 1991 for $3.1 million. Sometime between 1991 and 1999, extensive renovations were done to winterize the building, and in 1999, the hotel opened for its first winter season. Before that, they would close in the fall and open in the spring. Now, as an interesting aside to that, there's a grandfather clock in the lobby of the hotel. The clock was started during the opening ceremonies for the summer, usually in early July, and if you were the last guest to check out for the season, you had the honor of stopping the pendulum for the winter. and turning the clock off. Now, that clock still keeps time in the lobby today.
Wow.
In June of 2006, the Bretton Woods Mountain Resort was sold to C&L Financial Group. This now consisted of 991 acres. The Mount Washington Hotel, the Bretton Arms Country Inn, the Lodge at Bretton Woods, and the Bretton Woods Skeet Area. In 2009, a 25,000 square foot spa was added, and a 25,000 square foot conference center was also added. Omni Hotels and Resorts took over the management of the complex. In December of 2015, Omni Hotels and Resorts purchased the Bretton Woods Mountain Resort and currently runs it as the Omni Mount Washington Resort. So if you want to go check into it, that's who you book it through. There's a lot of interesting facts about the hotel that I'd love to go into, but I don't know if we're going to have the time. But right now, I want to talk a little bit more about Carolyn Stickney. When Joseph passed in 1903, Carolyn had everything she needed financially. Spending her summers at the hotel became her norm. Though she didn't run the hotel, she was an important part of making the guests feel like they were taken care of. She saw that their needs were dealt with, but always made sure that she was the person in the room that was noticed. Life in the hotel was fairly structured. There were 3 meals a day in the main dining room, and guests changed clothes 4 times a day. Dinner was a formal event. There was a curtained balcony that overlooked the entrance to the dining room. And there's one of these pictures that you can see a portrait of that. So when dining in the main dining room, Carolyn would watch from this balcony. If she noticed someone who was dressed better than she was, she would go to her room and change. She was always the last one to enter for dinner. Her table was reserved just inside the dining room to the right. Through the years, this table has always been set for her until 2020 when the tradition ended. Another place that Carolyn had strict rules about was the indoor pool. Apparently, if Carolyn decided that she wanted to swim, all the guests would be asked to leave the pool until she was finished. Room 314 was Carolyn's room. Even after she married the prince in 1913, she would spend the summers at the hotel. She would arrive to make sure everything was ready for opening day in early July. And then it was ready for everything, in early July. And then at the end of the season, she would pack all of her things, including her bed, and have it shipped to France where she would spend the rest of the year. This continued until the prince passed away in 1922. After that, she settled into a Rhode Island home for the off-season, making sure her bed traveled with her. She continued this until she passed in November of 1936. Her bed has been returned to the Mount Washington Hotel and is used by guests who stay in room 314. Now, Jamie, I found a video actually on TikTok, of all places.
Pronounce the TikTok, sir.
What's that?
The TikTok.
The TikTok, sorry. So I found this video, and it's sort of a tour of the suite. So can you sort of narrate for the people who can't see it?
Sure.
And we'll go through and just it's a really cool short little 1-minute video. So here we go.
Yeah. So you're seeing a 4-poster bed with a canopy, which is really cool. That's her bed, I guess. A nice seating area, fireplace, uh, coffee bar type thing, a settee. Wow, great view. Holy cow. Nice corner room. One thing I don't see is a television. I like that. That's pretty cool. A nice 3-piece bathroom, a lot of tile. Okay. A lot of tile, not towel, but the towels look very plush. You can just tell they're thick,
Hmm.
you know. Um, oh wow, they have a 5 panel wooden door. You don't see them anymore. It's not white. Yay! And a little kitchenette area. Um, and it looks like a very nice walk-in closet, which you don't find in many hotel rooms. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, there's the TV. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh well. Yeah, a little kitchenette, microwave, fridge, tile floor. That's cool.
So yeah, and so that that's where Carolyn would spend her
It's her
summer.
room. Okay.
Yep. So, like I said, I found this video on TikTok. The woman who posted it, let me see if I can find her name again. Uh, sorry. um, okay, so the video was posted by the original Cat 1987. This guest had issues checking in. They didn't have a reservation correct. So the hotel said, "Would you like to be upgraded to the princess suite?" And she said, "Of course." So,
Why not?
so why wouldn't you? If of course, what they don't tell you is that the princess suite is one of the most haunted rooms of the hotel. Um, so I couldn't find anything of if she had any experiences or not, but she enjoyed the room. But there are plenty of other people who have had experiences there. Um, most of the stories begin in the same way. Someone will notice the smell of a flowery perfume. They will hear a banging noise, even when the heat isn't on. They may hear a scratching sound. Others observe Carolyn sitting at the foot of the bed combing her hair. Another common story in 314 is that of being nudged in the shoulder. So is Carolyn trying to figure out who is sleeping in her bed?
Yep. I want to make a note here of the time at 22 minutes and 18 seconds. The first road trip call came in.
I'm
So
surprised it took that long.
I'm really surprised it took this long. So,
So,
but
so
there we go.
anyway, I found this. I found several firsthand accounts of things that have happened, but this one was specifically of room 314. It was from a blog on redoakproperties.com, talking about staying in a haunted hotel room. This guest and her husband had this experience, and this is what they had to say. They decided to take a road trip in September. When arriving for their weekend stay, they were told that the room wasn't ready, but if they wanted, they could be upgraded to room 314, which was a suite. They agreed and headed to the elevator. When they asked the elevator operator, you don't see those too often anymore either, um, when asked by the elevator operator where they were going, they told him, and he replied, "Oh, the haunted room." Thinking nothing of it, they got to the room. And the first night, when they were woken up by a scratching sound on the windowsill. When she tried to get up to see if it was windy outside, she heard what sounded like a bang on a pipe. Now the heat again wasn't on. The next day, while she was at a spa appointment, her husband decided to take a nap. He was woken up when he felt someone nudge his shoulder. He thought it was his wife, but realized he was alone in the room. That night, they went to sleep, and around midnight, they went to sleep around midnight, but at about 2 a.m., they heard the metal ice bucket lid hit the floor. When she sat up, she noticed the smell of flowery perfume in the air, and she noted that she doesn't wear perfume. She froze and couldn't move, and she had no explanation of what happened. The next morning, she told the waitress in the restaurant what had happened, and the waitress only nodded and smiled. I found several other stories that are documented on a website called twosistersabroad.com, Mount Washington Hotels. There are stories by staff who wish to remain anonymous. So the first one is pretty short. It's called a princess sighting. On more than one occasion, I would be walking in the main lobby and would see out of the corner of my eye what seemed to be a lady looking out over the mezzanine. Each time I would glance up, the image was gone, but a lot of employees and guests had the same experience. We all agree it was Princess Caroline, who was married to Joseph Stickney. The next one's called a scary encounter. This one is centered on room 314. In 1997, I was working as a housekeeper and had to clean room 314, the princess's room. I went to service the room that the newlyweds were staying in, and I knocked on the door and there was no answer. I opened the door, went in, and there was a little girl sleeping on the bed. Immediately, I went to the hallway to see my inspector and told her I couldn't clean the room because the little girl was sleeping. She said that was odd because the guests were newlyweds and nobody else was registered. She asked me to leave a note that I was coming back in an hour to service the room. I went back in the room to leave the note by the table. I walked into the room quietly to not wake the little girl up. When I looked at the bed, instead of a little girl, there was a woman staring right at me with the most scary smile on her face. She had black hair and was wearing a white dress. I got chills down my spine, and I just stood there frozen. She sat on the bed and kept staring at me. I ran out of the room and told my friend, who was also a housekeeper. We both went back in the room, and there was no one there. I still have a hard time remembering that incident, and I get chills every time I speak about it. I have many friends that have worked there, and I heard a lot of scary things happening. Oh, the day before this happened, my friend and I took pictures of ourselves on the princess's bed. Everybody tells me that I made her upset by doing that. So, let's see. The next story is called A Ballroom Visitor. In the late 80s, early 90s, when the hotel was still only seasonal, I was working alone in the ballroom late in the fall just before shutdown. That time of year always seemed to have more ghostly activity, like they knew they were all leaving soon. I had been working on the floor and I was resetting the room for a large meeting. The ballroom had super heavy curtains on the windows at the time, and I had closed them. I was moving chairs from the other side of the room, and at one point the curtains started flowing as if someone had a hold of them and was waving them back and forth. I checked all the doors and windows, and nothing was open. It made me wonder if someone was messing with me. I set down a chair and stood back up, and clear as day, I saw a woman standing there in a hoop style dress. Without even thinking about it, I started to leave, but then halfway to the door, I went back to see if someone was playing a trick. I went back out into the middle of the ballroom and was facing forward to the lobby of the hotel when it felt like somebody brushing past me. I guess it wasn't a trick. All right, the next story is called The Haunted Orchestra. As I walked into the ballroom late one evening on a night where there was no performers, I heard faint sounds of an orchestra playing. I thought a rehearsal was going on and I went in to see who it was. There was no one there. No one. As I walked from the side of the stage, the lights suddenly went out and the music got louder. It was surreal and very, very scary. I ran to the light switch and saw that it had been turned off. I turned it back on and the lights went on for a second, and then the switch turned down on its own. The entire time the music kept playing. I ran out and found security and told them what happened. They went to investigate and found nothing. No music and no problems with the lights.
Wow.
Of course, security never has problems with anything. All right. So the next story is about a room called the Cave, which is a hotel bar. I think there's been maybe some pictures of that flash up. I had few experiences, but this is the one that stands out for me the most. A few summers ago, I was bartending in the Cave, and it was just after we opened. I was standing on the side of the bar. No one was near the other end of the bar. The only people in the room were me, the other bartender, and two guests that we were standing and chatting with. All of a sudden, we heard a loud thud at the opposite end of the bar, and a stack of teacups and saucers we had stacked underneath the bar came flying out at least 4 feet and smashed all over the floor. No doubt in my mind there was a spirit in the room. The guests we were chatting with finished up their conversation and left for the night. They never came back for a drink.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so some pretty interesting things seen by people who work there. Um, the hotel has been investigated by many teams and people in the paranormal field. One of the groups that spends a lot of time there is Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, and John Tenney. On her podcast, The Haunted Road, Amy shares this experience. She had checked into the hotel one night, preparing for an event the next day, and went to bed. She had turned off the overhead light and was using the bedside lamp to get ready for bed. She climbed in bed and turned off the lamp. She lay there and she heard a click, and the room's overhead lights came on. Confused, Amy thought maybe it was a wiring issue because of the old hotel, and maybe the switch hadn't been turned off. She walked over, turned the switch off, and climbed back in bed. A few minutes later, she heard the click again, and the lights came back on. She got up, turned the lights off, and this process repeated several times until finally, exasperated, she said, "I'm tired and I have a long day tomorrow. All I want to do is get some sleep." With that, she heard the light click one more time, but this was the lights turning off. So, let's see more stories from her and her team. Amy and her team usually are at the Mount Washington Hotel in November for a weekend of investigation with a public group. When investigating, they break into smaller groups and go off to specific areas. It was during one of these sessions that Adam Berry had a very unique experience. He had a group investigating the towers, which are now permanently closed. He was going through the ground rules. He had that job, Jamie,
It's the
for the
worst
area.
job.
Yep. So he was going through the ground rules for the area and was explaining the expectations for the evening. When he finished, the people went off to start investigating. But there was one person who hung back, and Adam asked if she understood what he had explained, and she said no. So he started through everything one more time. Then he noticed that she looked out of place. She was dressed in a t-shirt and sweatpants. She was holding a dirty Diet Coke bottle that looked as if it had dirty water and cigarette butts in it. He asked her to hold on a minute while he checked on the group. When he turned around to see where the rest of the people were, he realized that this woman didn't have a lanyard on that they had all been issued to know who was supposed to be in the groups. So he turned back to her, and she was gone. Now, this room only had one way of getting out of it, and it was through a creaky old door. He didn't hear the door, and he asked numerous people if they had seen her, and no one recalled seeing anyone dressed like that. The next time Adam returned to the hotel, one of the staff tracked him down and said that she had been spotted on multiple occasions since then, but every time she would disappear before people could talk to her. Now, these are just a few of the stories that can be found on the Mount Washington Hotel. There are many, many more out there. So I would suggest checking them out, and of course, maybe a road trip. It is New Hampshire, so it's not too far away.
Yeah.
So Jamie, what do you think?
Wow. Well, yeah, road trip, right? There's a couple things. One is, and I'm going to put a couple comments that we got
Mhm.
here. So Bert did the same thing, and I did. I googled a place, and I found that the starting rate was $364 a night for a queen, very small queen room.
Mhm.
But as I scrolled down the available options, you get out of the standard rooms and you get into the president or the executive level rooms, and the
Mhm.
price goes up, of course. And then as you get out of that, there's another tier, which is the premier tier. And the second option I found there is the princess room, and it goes for $649 a night, and it is currently available. So if we leave now,
Uh-huh.
uh,
So,
but that was really interesting. And then you get into the luxury suites above that, and you're around 1,200 a night. So
okay.
um,
I was just let me see if I can go back a slide here. I
yeah,
don't know if I
but I'm saying that to say that this is a luxury hotel. There's no doubt about it, right? And it's clear in all the imagery we're seeing here, on the slides that are going through. Everything's opulent, and
Mhm.
it's been that way since its start. It's a travesty, all of the white painting over everything, and what it must have taken for remediation and
Yeah.
whatever's been done. Like, gosh, it's insane that would have happened. Just so much craftsmanship was lost. Um,
Yeah.
and if I were a near and dear spirit to this facility, I'd be pretty ticked off at that point.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of like, renovations cause activity a lot of times, or it stirs
Mhm.
activity. I can only imagine what this would have been. But it's really cool to see that it's still running. Like, this has been
Mhm.
around for so long, and it's such a large place. I mean, the expense and the care is taken to keep it going.
Well,
The Omni chain is not a it's not a small operation either. So it's not
right.
it's not a Motel 6.
So,
Um,
on that note, Jamie,
no knock on the Motel 6s. They get us by, like when we're
right.
traveling and we need to get somewhere. Us as investigators, we always try to find the least expensive option. If there was this and a Motel 6, I would be at the Motel 6, of course. So,
Yeah.
um,
So, on that note that you just brought up, it is one of the few grand hotels that is still operating.
yeah, there are not
It
many
is.
left. Yep.
It is also the largest wooden structure in New Hampshire.
I can imagine. It's called Mount Washington because it's a mountain of trees um,
Uh huh.
in the building. Uh,
So
Gosh.
yeah, it's a gorgeous building. So
Yeah, there's a few other things. Let me scroll back here. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Um, the road trip was there. Um,
So while you're looking for that,
okay,
one of the other features that I found, the steps were designed for ladies in dresses to be able to go up and down the steps easily. They were wide steps with short rises, wide treads with short rises. So things like that were taken into account when designing something this opulent. Just a little interesting tidbit.
sure. Well, you can't step as high with that big hoop dress on, and
Mhm.
right makes sense. I mean, we don't wear ours out in public, but we know, right? Um,
Sure,
of
sure.
course, right? Sure, but well, you're right though. The intricacies and the details. That's where this place stands out. It's visible in all the slides we're seeing, and thanks for putting all of these in because it's
Mhm.
really cool. Uh,
This one is the gold room that I was talking about earlier. So that is her original dining room table.
oh wow.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt there.
Well, we can't find these things anymore. That's
Right.
really cool. Like I think of like the Stanley out in Colorado, Estes Park. Another grand hotel. The only thing I've ever stayed at that was as close is in Harper's Ferry, the old Hilltop House.
Hmm.
That's now in such a sad state of disrepair, but it's nowhere near this level. I mean, it's the nicest thing in the area there.
Right.
Where it is, it gave it be let it be that draw place. But
Hmm.
man, this every time we look at a room or you can see out a window, the views are amazing.
Hmm.
I can understand how somebody would want to stay.
Yeah.
Once they pass through and passed on. Um,
It often.
and for Caroline to take her bed everywhere and have it still be there, that's
I
got to be the
think that's
testament as well.
cool. One question that comes up about the hotel is: was the book The Shining or the movie The Shining based on the hotel, and or was it filmed there? And the answer to both those questions is no.
Yep,
Believe it or not,
I
because
knew that.
I believe it was the Estes
The
Park
Stanley, yeah,
with Stanley. But here's a little bit of Walt Disney World trivia for you. The Grand Floridian in Walt Disney World was based off the Mount Washington Hotel.
cool.
So,
That's a neat resort.
mhm.
I've passed through it,
I
so
have not stayed there either.
yeah, I've passed through it, not to stay. Um, I thought you were going to say something like The Parent Trap was filmed there or something.
No, no, maybe I don't. So,
Yeah, that and the
what
winter
else?
view there that we're looking at a winter view now, like, I could see why people wouldn't want to be there or, although I'll tell you, I've been in the northern tier states in the wintertime and skiing is such a thing. And, there are so many mountains throughout the northern tier of New England
Mhm.
that it wouldn't surprise me, especially with Mount Washington's nearby as being its highest point. There must
Right,
be I go to Vermont in the summertime and the trails are open then for mountain biking and outdoor activities, but it's
right,
clearly a ski resort thing.
right.
That's the draw. And every resort has a name. Having lived in the Rockies, same thing. Like,
Mhm.
skiing is the draw and the outside winter sports in general. So it's amazing to me that they didn't take advantage of that. But again, trying to heat this place and or,
Right,
keep it from just being too
right.
cold, it's
It
got to be
did
it had its own challenge.
when it was built. It did have a heating system installed, but it wasn't sufficient to get it through the winters. And I'm not sure when downhill skiing became a important sport in the United States. Like, has it always been like? Because I think more often it would have been cross country.
Well,
When
the same idea though. You could leave and go traverse some area and come back, a kind of thing. Ice hockey, the same thing. All you need is a frozen pond, you
true,
know, and we have that, here in our area. Um, Out
right,
on Route 30 in the Gap area, there's a couple small ponds as you're leaving Gap and heading east still on the left side, and It's great in the wintertime. You see the Amish kids out there playing
Mhm,
ice hockey.
mhm,
It's so cool. Yeah, they have a string of lights on the side or across the top of the pond,
right.
and they're out there, having fun. So
Hmm.
it's really neat. Something
But
you don't expect to see.
right, but with
Nobody
an
knows
acre
the
of
idea of
glass,
holiness.
with an acre of glass and windows, and it was probably single pane, there would have been no way of
Oh
keeping
yeah,
that in. So,
yeah. And it wouldn't, they took all the wood to build the building. They didn't have any trees left for fireplaces. So
firewood. Um, I talked about when they added the spa in the conference room. When they did that, they kept the aesthetics of the original approach in place. So when you're coming up to the hotel, you don't see any of that addition. It's all hidden. So what you still get that grand look. And I don't think I talked about it, but apparently it's one of those where you drive for miles and miles and miles and you don't see anything, and you come around a bend in the road, and there it is. So
so somebody is Burton knows how to use Google. Uh, Downhill skiing became popular in the 1930s.
uh-huh.
There we go. The era of the property. Thanks, Bert.
So anyway, yeah. Um, hey Kyle.
There's Kyle. Hey, good evening, sir. Thanks for joining.
So yeah, it's one of those places that I would love to get. I would investigate. I, I don't know if it's ever going to be in my budget.
Well, I'll tell you this, sir. I go to Vermont regularly,
Mhm,
and staying in mid-state. I remember I was in the area, a town called Warren, kind of mid-state-ish, a little bit to the west even. To get over to actually climb Mount Washington to drive up it, was like a 2.5 hour drive or 3 hour drive at the most each way, kind of thing.
mhm,
So it was a day trip kind of deal. So it's not impractical, like to be up in the area because New England kind of gets narrow, and
mhm.
even to be over in Maine and coming to the west, get over to it. You don't have to stay at the resort in order to be at the resort, kind of
Right,
thing too. So, the accommodations in the area, I'm sure, are nowhere near the extraordinary executive level costs that you would have here.
right.
But I agree, it would be great to stay there. And the idea is, uh, November perhaps, when Amy and her team do their annual event, that would be the time to get into a public event with them.
Mhm.
That sounds really interesting. It's something to think about for next year. We're a little late for the game this year, I'm assuming, but
Yeah, because then this year I looked. They're doing it a little differently. This year they're doing 1 day events where you sign up for a day and investigate for a day with them, and then so it's like instead of the whole weekend, they've broken it up so they can get more people in. I think.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. And Heather's got an interesting point here. Like this is the same idea for why the resort would have kind of shuttered for the winter.
mhm.
The town population in the area they were staying in near Mount Washington was 148 people in the summer, but only 48 in the winter. So 100 people are chicken or have a place to stay in Florida. Um,
Right,
but that is it. That's kind of
right.
like the thing, and,
You
and that's
couldn't
why
get
I
to
go in the summer, for the very same reason. It is gorgeous. I mean, where
right.
it's 90 here in South Central Pennsylvania, it's 80 there at the max. 75, 80. Everything is lush and green. You can get out and do anything you want to do, and the mountains are everywhere. It's gorgeous.
Mhm.
And now as the fall has come, and I'm sure there's in the mountains there's already snow, at least some. The leaves are gorgeous now, but I get pretty
Yep.
leaves here too, so that would be cold. Uh,
Mhm.
I can understand it. I really can. I mean, we get people here who leave when it gets chilly,
Yep.
so head south. So I don't know. You're pretty diehard. You're gonna
So
stick around.
this picture that I've got up here,
Mhm.
it's hard to. I'm sure it's hard to see, but um, this was a staff picture that they had done. I forget what year, 80s, 90s, I believe, when they had pulled everybody out of the hotel. It wasn't open yet, so there shouldn't have been any guests inside. All the staff was outside. And you see the denotation where room 314 is, which we talked about earlier.
Yep.
In the window directly below that, it looks like there's somebody in that room.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, just a very small thumbprint kind of picture here, but
Uh,
there's certainly something that appears to be a person or a silhouette of somebody inside the window to the right of it, the
yeah.
window frame.
So now, of course, was there somebody in the room? It's hard to tell when you've got that
Yeah,
many people.
of course.
like,
Yeah, somebody to stay behind, right?
Hmm. Let's see if I can find any other pictures here that I wanted to go through. Um, Here we go. So there's now a portrait there where that balcony with curtains used to be, but this is where Carolyn would sort of peek out through the curtains and watch people go into the dining room and make sure that they didn't look better than she did because you can't have
Right.
that. So,
There's a touch of diva happening here, isn't there?
mhm,
So, and I think that it kind of comes with the territory, right? When you have that position, you
mhm,
have you get a little of that going. It's what it is.
right,
Um, I'm not judging. I guess I am, but I'm not trying
right.
to. I don't want to sound judgy, but it's also kind of strange too. Like you have to be that last one because you want to be the best dressed. There's a lot of ego in that. So maybe a little narcissism, whatever it is. But man, when you have the ability to do it, it's your place. You can't
Hmm.
argue.
So, this is the cave bar that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's a neat looking space. A lot of that rustic timber.
Hmm.
Certainly get the cave feel of it.
So, but yeah, it's definitely one of those places that I would love to go spend some time at. So maybe someday.
I'll put it on the list, right?
Hmm. So, um, what else was? Oh, when the hotel was in its heyday, um, they charged. I think it was a per person charge because your meals were included. So I almost feel like these hotels were more like what we would consider a cruise these days. You would go in and your activities were there and your meals were included. They charged $20 a day, which I believe was four times the norm for hotels. And if you change that to today's dollars, it would be $600 a day.
Wow.
Now, you have to remember this was, the family with the wife and the kids. They also brought their staff with them and their servants and things like so. You all the nannies like
Entourage at this point, right?
so, yeah. So everybody like you couldn't do this if you were not well to do. So, but anyway, yeah, definitely a place to go visit. I mean, these pictures just I can imagine can't do it justice. So,
Yeah. Well,
I know we have a former teammate who's been there a couple times, Jamie, investigating. So,
yeah.
yep.
Well, again, it's on the list.
Mm,
It's like it's like everything we do, right? If we haven't been there yet, we want to get there. It's the joy of uncovering these new places,
mhm,
um, and having these eye opening experience things that people are having. My gosh, there's so many stories, and the tenure of time that this place has existed to allows for that. It's not like
mhm.
it's a new build. Um, Mary's got the right idea. So, how many people can fit in a haunted room that we can divide and conquer? Uh, well, it sleeps three, believe it or not. It says that anyway. The princess room says it sleeps three on a queen bed. So we're gonna be elbows to elbows, but
Well,
there's
there was
there's
the
a love
was
seat.
the
There's a
chaise
couple
lounge.
chairs,
Yeah.
plenty of floor space. So
So
we
that
can
that
pile in.
bed did not look like a queen bed when I looked at it. It looked more like a double,
I agree. Completely agree.
if not a
And the
single.
online images even makes it look even smaller because it's kind of pinched a bit.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah. Ugh. Yeah, and there it is, right? That's a great point, Marie. Who sleeps when investigating anyway? You're right. You're
So
right.
so anyway, yeah, definitely a place to put on the list, Jamie. So
Yeah, I'm in. It doesn't take much, though. You know that. Hey, you
true.
want to? Okay. I
Uh,
was I was just re-listening to our Fort Mifflin episode that got
uh-huh.
uploaded this week, and I was commenting at the beginning how like a day before I stopped by your house, drop off a kid or something, some transition, some
Mhm.
prisoner transfer, um, and and I kid when I say that because it makes them roll their eyes every time.
I know
Um,
it's
but
funny.
It's fun. It's funny to me. That's all that matters. But I said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And you're like, "Why?" I said, "Well, I want to get out of Fort Mifflin. You interested?" Okay,
I
that's all
didn't
it takes.
I didn't skip a beat there.
You didn't. It's like, okay, what time? That's kind of how it goes when you have so much ground to cover, right? Like there's stuff everywhere. How do we get it all? And then we'll never will. It's a we'll call it a bucket list, whatever you want to call that kind of stuff that you want to get there.
Mhm.
Um, but there's so many places, so everywhere. So there's not enough time. Ever going to be enough time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not aware of it, you'll never know. So thanks for bringing it forward, and this
Mhm.
is such a neat thing. Um, how the other half lives, kind of deal too. Like
Right.
especially back in the day, um, it's almost reasonable though. Like I've stayed in major cities and spent as much as the base start point here for their rooms. It's like 364, 384, depending on the
Okay.
layout. It's not too bad. I mean, I definitely have stayed in Chicago for like business trips and spent that much in a very icky hotel. Not icky,
Mhm.
but like not a nice hotel like this.
Right.
So 400 or so for a double room, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Well, I definitely have, stayed in New York City in a much smaller room for that
yes,
price.
yes, exactly.
Like,
So here you have luxury.
you climb out of the end of the bed because there's no room on the sides.
Yes,
So,
I've had a few of those hotel rooms. Yes. Cool. Well,
when you're at the castle, you may as well, continue.
yeah, just shoot right over. Well, I guess not far. So it's a couple of 2 hours drive or so. And you can go back up Mount Washington. Just don't take your truck this time, so you're not scared. But, can't see anything.
Uh, so
You get a bumper sticker every time you go.
so, well, I'm not taking my car because my car would not make it up, but that's a whole different story.
No, I think it would. I think it would. It's graded really well. It's easy. There's pull offs everywhere, so no biggie. You can
So,
always take the train up too, which is I really want to do that. Actually, that looks.
well, the train is a whole thing because that's called the Cog Railway, which is a
Yep.
special
Yeah.
train, and yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah. That's the next time. Yep.
there you
Person
go.
with me. Okay.
So, anyway, any final thoughts on that? I mean, like you said, it's definitely an experience. I can't imagine living that lifestyle back in the
Yeah.
early 1900s, but kudos to those who could. It must have been just a great thing. So,
It's we were talking about the entourage, right?
hmm
The amount of people that had to come with the family. The family size is one thing, and then the people that come with them. The other thing that just struck me is how much luggage these people would have had to bring. If you were talking about changing clothes 4 times a day, an outfit for each meal, and then an outfit to go out to something outside, some outside
right,
activity, something else, casual wear.
hmm
I imagine you have to have a room just for your luggage too.
right.
Like it's crazy how
Well,
much
which is why the
influence that
walk-in
was.
closet, like they had the walk-in closet, and that's why because
Yeah.
it wasn't just a day's trip, or it was months.
Yeah, but this wasn't Samsonite luggage, like
No, your
with
steamer
roller
trunks.
wheels and everything. These are steamer trunks, and these chunky things, crates of stuff
Mhm.
that was coming in. So, um,
And they
man, the
the one thing
logistics with it is nuts too.
well, and the one thing I heard is like it would be 35 trains a day coming up and offloading people and then
Wow,
moving them to the hotel. Like it's just the logistic, like you said, just the logistics.
yeah,
So,
it's its own enterprise.
mhm,
Well,
so yep.
if you have it, there you go.
Mhm. So, well, should we move on, Jamie?
I think we can wrap up. Yeah, we're
Mhm.
getting close to the top of the hour. So I'll go from here. So upcoming for us next week, we're going to talk about Rose Mackenberg, a real person, not a ghost. Well, maybe she might be by now. She passed back in 1968, but she was a renowned private investigator who worked very very closely with Harry Houdini for quite a while, and went around and helped to debunk false mediumships and those who were taking advantage of people's grief and loss for profit. So, something that Houdini was personally invested in due to the loss of his own mother, and I wanted to make contact with the other side. So we'll dig into Rose and some of the circumstances with her and all the stuff that she did next week.
Cool.
2 weeks out on the 19th, we're going to talk about the Queen Mary. It's Chad's episode. So I'm really excited there. That's one of those spots. Another one that everybody should try to get to. The Great Lakes Triangle will follow that. Get like the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon Triangle that we've and the Alaskan Triangle. A lot of triangles out there in the world. So 3 points and some spooky stuff. I say it all the time is all you need. But so they're literally everywhere. But this one is quite a mystery still. So cover that. And then on December 3rd, Chad's going to tackle the Birdcage Theater out in Tombstone, Arizona. Quite a lot going on there back in the heyday. And then I thought it was time, because it's been well over a year, to revisit Urban Legends, but we're going to call it Part 2 International version. So we did the domestic, or a lot of domestic urban legends a while back, and it's an episode you can find on the streaming services in our catalog. But I started digging into some just out of curiosity from around the world, and it just doesn't stop. So
It never does. Yeah.
they never do, right? Yeah, they just keep coming. So we'll tackle that coming up right before December 10th. Sorry, just a couple weeks before Christmas, and we got to figure out our holiday schedule, right? So
Yeah, because this year Tuesdays are Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So
their days will get in trouble with family if we spend too much time here instead.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll figure something out. And then
And the 17th, Jamie, I'm kicking around some ideas that we need to talk about, and maybe we do something a little different that one.
yeah, hey, I'm in. It's the same. It's the same thing as asking for him to go to Fort Mifflin. You want to go? Yes. Whatever. Let's do it.
So
That's the bonus of self-producing, right there.
exactly.
Yep.
So let's see. Then we got some investigations coming up.
Yeah, we got 2 more events this year. The 16th of November is coming up in a couple weeks, and then December 7th, and we are wrapping up 2024 pretty quickly here. So it has been a fantastic year for events at Booby's Brewery, and we want to say thank you to everyone who's come out and joined us along the way. If you have not and you're anywhere nearby, please do. The place will not disappoint. It's just a neat old place. It's highly active at times. Can never promise you anyone's going to walk out and introduce themselves. However, having been there for several years now, we certainly know that there is activity. We will do our level best to have full engagement with you and teach you how to investigate if you don't know how to. So the only thing stopping you is you. So come on out. We'll see you there. You can go to boobiesbrewery.com. Please type in brewery after Boobies, or else you will get other stuff that's not safe for work. We really don't recommend that, especially not at work. But I kid, of course. But yeah, boobiesbrewery.com. You can find tickets there for those events. And once we get the next year and the 2025 dates, we'll get them up here too. We just haven't been coordinated quite yet. We're in the process of nailing those down. So more to come.
Yep, getting there.
Yeah, we'll be back. Don't worry. And then how to find us. You found us on YouTube and Facebook tonight for this live recording, but it is a recording, and it will be available on the streaming services sometime tomorrow afternoon. But otherwise, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok as well, or the TikTok as it should be called.
The kids are calling it.
Yeah, so that's why the old kids are calling it. If you have a touch of gray, it's the TikTok. But yeah, we'll be on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart, you name it. It's probably going to happen. If it doesn't, you don't need to listen to that service anyway. If you do find us there on any of those services, if that's where you found us here or any of the other episodes we have, feel free to give us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know how we're doing. A bunch of stars would be fantastic as well. I think they only allow 5. We'll probably earned 8 or 9 of them, but we'll settle for 5. We'd love to hear your feedback and give us, some ideas what you might want to hear us do coming up as well. We have a schedule of events that we're going to cover for episodes, but we're certainly flexible. We can squeeze stuff in anywhere we want. We make this ourselves. So, but if there's a topic you'd like to hear about or an experience you've had, feel free to drop us a line at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com, and we will follow up with you and see what we can do. So,
yeah.
Touch base.
So speaking of the streaming stuff, Jamie, we are up to 429 plays of our streaming stuff.
Oh wow!
To 11 countries, which that just amazes me that there's people in 11 countries out there who are
I,
interested
I didn't even know there were 11 countries. That's
in
amazing.
um, just it's just sort of cool to see it.
Yeah.
We
Thank you. It's fantastic, and we appreciate every one of you for spending some of your time with us, and hopefully we've been able to enlighten and maybe provide some humor while we're at it,
yeah,
and spur some thought on what's going on in the paranormal world. We
yep.
really appreciate you.
So, and we almost have all of our season 1 catalog uploaded.
I
We're getting
noticed that. Oh my gosh, yeah. So
so we're getting there.
they're out there. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, I preloaded the Haunted Mansion today, Jamie. So that's coming up
Oh,
soon.
oh my
So
gosh, that was my first field assignment.
hmm
Um,
so
yeah,
so
I'm looking
well,
forward. I realized that today too as I was catching up on us, and I thought, oh, it's got to be soon, like next couple
hmm
days. So
so
fantastic.
it is. Yep. So all right. Well,
That
as
means
always.
actually that means we have the episode that I was away with Steve Dills for the Hanover Tavern coming up next as our next release. So
Yep.
if you have not, we're not afraid to plug others, and certainly we have
Mhm.
there are a lot of great people out there, and we know a lot of folks who are doing really really great work in the field, promoting and engaging and providing opportunities for folks to get out and investigate spaces that you may never have gotten to otherwise. And the Hanover Tavern down in Virginia is one of those such places. And Steve Dill's there, who runs their paranormal group. They have a Paracon coming up in January there.
Mhm.
We've toyed with the idea of going. Just probably gonna. But it's a really well run event.
Mhm.
A lot of guests, a lot of cool things. The investigation, of course, there as well, and the complex that the property really is as well. So. Um,
Yep.
and it's warmer in Southern Virginia in January than it is here in the Northeast. So
No, because when I
no,
went down
never
last
mind.
year,
All right, fine.
it snowed. Yes, Emmy and I went down and it snowed that day. So,
Get out, really?
yep,
Holy cow. All right. Well, I know they shut down like DC when it's like a flake of snow, so I'm assuming
exactly.
everything was on lockdown.
Yep. So,
All right. Well, take
um,
some milk and eggs with you, just in bread, just in case there's
so I
snow.
can make my French toast.
Yes, you have to make French toast. That's a rule.
So, yep. All right. Well, on that note, everybody have a great week, and we will see you next Tuesday right here, same place.
Yep.
Until then, stay spooky, right, Jamie?
You got it. Good night, all. Take
All right.
care.
Night.